implementation against anti-poor education policies. Since the student loan bill was signed to law on 12 June 2023, we have been campaigning against it, exposing its contradictions and its unworkability. Despite our best efforts and the mass opposition of a broad spectrum of society, including stakeholders in the education sector, the President Tinubu administration has insisted it should go ahead with this policy starting from January 2024. According to the 2024 appropriation bill, a sum of 50 billion.
So if you watch this video, you would see where this guy is talking about the current situation of the student loan that was released in the country. So now basically what he's trying to tell us in the video is that this student loan that Tinubu has released for this country is more of a burden than a solution, because in countries that have done this in Africa, it never ends well. Students end up not being able to pay their students loan after being taken. And also, if you think about the current situation of the country, students are flocking to schools and you are encouraging them to take student loan. Now when you encourage them to take student loan, they go to school and they come out and the country does not even have enough jobs for the already graduates. Now the ones that are going to school are going to come outside and join the graduates that are there. So you see why this guy is making so much sense, because the student loan is not good. The student loan is a scam. Like he said, the student loan is a scam. It is against the poor masses. It is not for the poor masses. If the country was a country that has job already for students, then it would be more of a provision for these students, because when they go out to school on this student loan, they can come out from school, and when they come out from school they can have paying jobs, and in the next 5 years they will be able to pay off their student loan. But in this situation of the country now, there are no jobs, there's no job available for any student, and we should make it more harder for them to even go out and actually earn money for themselves after school. They have to now fall down back into handwork or into devious means to make money for themselves. Another reason why this student loan is a bad thing for the students in this country is number two. If a child takes a student loan to get these things done, the school does not even have proper facilities to accommodate the students into the school, which is more of the reason why most students get into school, and when they get into school they come out instead of staying in the school, because the school will not have the facilities. The school beddings, the school apartments are not even good enough for the students to stay in. They will come to this school, and when they come to this school they will have to rent apartments outside for them to go to the school. Now if imagine a person takes a loan right now, and when the person takes a loan he has to pay or rent an apartment which will cost over 100,000 naira plus for a semester. If he is doing that, will he be able to, if he's not able to pay, or if he's not able to get an apartment and he takes a loan, he is not able to pay for his apartment, his or her apartment, how is he going to go to school and use the student loan which he acquired? So it is not possible in this country. It is against the poor masses, and it is not for the poor masses. Please watch this video to the end. And see how this guy says truth about this loan and this student loan that is currently going on, and how it is against the poor masses. If you are thinking of entering school, if you are thinking of sending your child to school, please watch this video and know that you should not apply for that student loan, because even if you apply for that student loan, only a few limited people will be able to get it according to the qualifications that has been given or written on that student loan, which is why I say it again, it is more against the poor man than for the rich man.
The rich or the poor. We also confirm that the policy will transform public education into a business and students into customers. We also, from our research, realized that this loan policy has never worked anywhere. In the 1970s in this country, this loan policy was also introduced by the military regime, and it failed. It failed after a few years. And in many parts of the world, including the US and UK, where you have had this loan policy for the past few years, it has led to high cost of education, college fees, rising astronomically over the past few decades in the United States alone, to the extent that Many people cannot even afford college in the US despite the student loan. Apart from that is that the student loan in this part of the world has also led the beneficiaries in these places to lifelong indebtedness, with the loan causing all kinds of anxieties, depression, including even suicide among many. Many people in the UK and the US say that after school they are not able to start a life, they are not able to get married because their income, a huge percentage of it, goes on to pay student loan. And in the UK today, the average number of years for people to pay their student loans is about 40 years. So just imagine somebody leaves university at the age of 26, 27, and they have to spend the next 40 years paying a student loan. When exactly will they have enough resources to even begin to plan their life and to begin to move forward with their life? And that is the kind of policy that our president has brought to Nigerian people, as a gift to us. And that's why we say that we must reject it. It has not worked anywhere. It's not going to work in Nigeria, a country where graduates leave the university, and for 5 years after, they don't even have a job. Those who have a job are being paid 30,000 naira minimum wage. If you are being paid 30,000 naira as a worker, you have to pay a percentage of it every month to service student loan. How much will actually be left for you, to survive? Then we have also discovered through this publication and the research work that went into it that the loan scheme will only cater to a minority of the indigent student population. By the time Comrade Kikere is going to review this publication for us, begins to go into the nitty-gritty of what we found, we are going to be shocked that at the end of the day, this loan policy, especially the 50 billion that has been put in the 2024 budget, if it's approved, is only going to cater for a very minor percentage of the student population. So at the end of the day, it will not solve the problem of access to education for the vast majority of indigent Nigerian students who are battling rising fee hike and high cost of education and actually need support for their studies. Part of our findings is that this loan policy will not resolve the problem of access even for the minority of students that are able to pay the loan. What we mean is that even for the little percentage of students who are lucky to get this loan, and the journalists will remember that at a previous occasion in August or thereabout, we had a press conference where we subjected the loan act itself to point by point, paragraph by paragraph examination, and we discovered that many of the requirements put in the act will ensure that very few people will be able to meet up with it. But what we are even saying that even for the little they are able to get the loan, this new research work we have done actually now confirms that even those ones will still not be able to have full access to education based on the student loan. And what do we mean by this? The student loan is meant to cater for tuition. That is what the act says. Tuition is just a minor percentage of the regime of fees payable, in our university system and tertiary education system across the country today. There is something you call sundry fees, which include ICT fee, library fee, accommodation, and co. Sometimes we can go as high as 150,000, even 200,000 in some universities. So if government supports you to pay with a loan to pay a fee, your tuition fee, how exactly are you going to pay the remaining sundry amount? We can go as high as hundreds of thousands of naira. If you look at the university system today, in many universities, we found that at least 40% of students are compelled to take up accommodation outside of the campus because it's either the accommodation within the university is not adequate or they don't even exist. So if somebody pays their tuition and they don't have money to get accommodation at Akoka or at their number, how exactly would they be able to go through school for that one academic session? So what we are saying therefore is that we are going to realize that the student loan, even for those who are able to get it, does not resolve any of these key problems for them. The student loan policy, according to our findings, we also lead to mass dropouts and decline in enrollment. And what we mean is this: the government has already allowed administrators of universities to increase school fees exponentially over the last few years. In fact, this year alone, school fees has increased by more than 600 to 800%. So what this means is that if you are unlucky, and I'm sorry to say, a majority of undergraduate students will be unlucky not to get the loan. It means that you would have to pay higher level of fees even than before. So what that therefore means is that in the next few years, those who are going to be left in our university system will be two categories of students. Those lucky enough, and that is a minority, to get the loan, as well as children of rich parents who can be able to pay the 300,000 or the 250,000 that fees would have gotten to in places like Unilag or LASU and other places. The rest of us, that is the children of working people, the children of poor people, will find themselves outside of the university system. So when the ASU president said last week that over the next 3 years, 50% of the current undergraduate population in the university system are likely to drop out, he was not just giving figures out of the air. He was talking about the reality of what is going to happen on the basis of this new policy of the government. And we have seen it before. In 2014, at Lagos State University, in 2012, rather, at Lagos State University, school fees was increased from 25,000 to about 350,000. For the next 3 years, LASU began to have a decline in its enrollment to the extent that by the third year, you now had in LASU, for instance, in some 100 level and 200 level classes, maybe 18 students or 15 students. And in this department, you have 18 PhD holders, you have 25 professors. So the idea now is that about 35 lecturers, including PhD holders and professors, are now going to be teaching 15 students. So by the third year, even the jobs of lecturers became threatened at the Lagos State University because of the sharp drop in the student population. And it was at that point that everybody, including students and workers in LASU, decided to stand up and they began to fight to get the school fees completely reversed. We think that what happened in LASU at those times is what is going to happen on a nationwide basis because of the student loan policy that the government wants to start implementing from January. LASU was the laboratory and we saw what happened. Imagine that happening on a nationwide basis. Hundreds of thousands of students are going to drop out. Tens of thousands who are writing JAMB are getting admission. Once the expensive, like I said, for that only those who get the loan or those who have rich parents would actually be able to remain in our public universities. And of course, last but not the least, I already mentioned that this student loan, according to our findings, will lead to job loss, for education workers. The last point is that we also discovered that the student loan policy is based on a false assumption. The assumption by the Tinubu government is that Nigeria is too poor to fund education. We disagree with this. We think that the government is lying. And all available facts and evidence shows that the government is lying. That Nigeria is actually rich enough to fund education, to fund public health care, to fund the real needs of the people. But you have a very corrupt, rotten capitalist elite that does not want to spend money on what matters to the people, but rather can use that money, about 3 billion naira, to sponsor itself and some full hangers on to Dubai COP28. That same government is voting billions of naira to repair the residences of the vice president and of the president, while Nigerian students in Unilag, in LASU, in OAU, in UI, are sleeping on bed-bug-infested mattresses in the ramshackle hostels. If this government really says that there's no resources for this country, then we expect that the bed tightening and the sacrifice will come from the government itself. But at the period when they are saying there is no money, they are spending record amount of resources to take care of their own convenience. That is why we disagree with them. Think that there is money to fund education, and this money can be saved and rescued from the hands of those who are stealing it to begin to inject it into the education sector. 6 years ago, the Academic Staff Union of Universities asked the federal government to begin to inject the university system about 200 billion naira annually over a period of 6 years, all amounting to about 1.1 trillion naira. And that position was made by ASU in 2013 on the basis of a visitation panel, the finding of the government itself, when it did what it called a need assessment of the conditions of public universities across the country and discovered serious infrastructural gaps across universities. They discovered that there were laboratories in the universities which were using kerosene stove instead of Bunsen burners. They discovered libraries in many of our campuses where there were no books at all, and yet they called them libraries. And as we said, if you could inject this amount within a period of 6 years, then we can begin to reposition. They have refused to do that over the past few years. But our findings today, through this publication, actually shows that not only can they pay this money that ASU has demanded to begin to resolve the problem affecting public education in this country, they can even save more money than what ASU is demanding. In fact, according to our findings, we discovered that if the wastages and leakages and corruption of this government is caught, Nigeria on an annual basis can save the sum of 1 trillion naira, 767 billion, 820 million and 800,000. I'm sorry that I mixed the figures together. The money is too much. But the round figure is that this government on an annual basis can save 1.7 trillion to begin to inject into our public education system, especially at the tertiary level, to begin to address the infrastructural gaps. And how would they save this money? We think that the government can save 8.4 billion naira if we decide not to buy new vehicles for Tinubu, the vice president, and the first lady. The office of the first lady itself is an illegal and unconstitutional office, but billions of naira have been voted at a period when we need money to fund education for this office. If they can cut that, we will save 8.4 billion naira for that. We will save 14.3 billion naira, sorry, if the renovation of the residences of Tinubu and Shetima is stopped. And we have to ask ourselves, when their predecessor, Buhari and his vice were living, did they go with all the furnitures and curtains? If they did, they should let us know so that EFCC can go after them to retrieve the nation's properties from them. How can you say that the residence that we know is in opulent state has to be renovated with this amount when students are living, like pigs in campuses across the country? We can save 14 billion of that. We can save 220 million if the sitting allowance and honorarium of the president and the VP alone for a year is cut. Apart from salaries and allowances, apart from the fact that their feeding and their clothing as the first and second family is being taken care of with public treasury, the vice president and the president also collect sitting allowance and honorarium. This has to be stopped. We can save 260 billion if the security vote by governors is cut. A tiny state in the southwest here, Osun State, the governor revealed last month that his security vote is 600 million. So you can imagine how much Lagos State security vote is. And this money is a lie, because there's budget for police, there's budget for army. So security vote is just slush fund for the governor to do as he wishes, with. If we stop this criminal allocation of security vote, we will save 260 billion that we can put into the service of education. We will save 34 billion if you decide to cut by 50% alone the salaries and allowances of 109 senators and the 360 House of Representative members. Just last week, we had information that the senators, 109 of them, donated their December salary to Kaduna victims. We say thanks, but no thanks. It is criminality, but some Nigerians have been applauding it. But what people don't realize is that that is actually a confirmation that the senators have just made, that their salary is just minor, and that there are other illegal and legal sources through which they are stealing Nigeria's resources. Because ordinary Nigerians, if they donate their full salary in a month, that means they are going to starve for the next 30 days. But these people are saying they want to donate their salary. It's a confirmation that there is more. And it is true. According to a think tank, STS, they said that the total cost of the salary and allowances of the National Assembly elected members is 69 billion naira annually. So these people that donated 109 billion, they think that we are fools. We are not fools. We are demanding a cut, a 50% cut in that. Last but not the least, comrades and ladies and gentlemen, we can save 1 trillion 450 billion naira. We can save 1 trillion naira if we do what? If we end the contract system in this country, we can save that annually. According to the new FCC chairman, last 2 weeks, he said that 2.9 trillion was lost within a period of 2 years from 2018 to 2020 on the basis of contract and procurement fraud. And what does that mean? If they say they want to construct 840 kilometers of road, they will give it to a contractor. Contractor will pay the budget. Road that's supposed to cost 1 naira per kilometer, they will put it for 10 naira per kilometer. Because minister will collect his cut. Permanent secretary will collect his own. National Assembly, that the road project follows that constituency, will collect his own. Director will collect. Councillor will still collect. Chairman of the local government, we collect. And of course, Baale, Omonile, and co will collect. So at the end of the day, the amount that Nigeria used to construct a kilometer of road is the highest in West Africa. Go and find out. And it is true. This means that huge percentage of our public resources are filtering away. If this is cut and ended, we can begin to realize an additional 1 trillion naira every year that can be put into education. The sum of all of this amount is about 1.7 trillion. And we think that there is even more. But education is not the only thing that needs to be funded. There is healthcare. And that's why we are saying that if the commanding height of this economy is put under public ownership with democratic workers' control, you can just begin to see that there's a lot of wealth in this country that can actually be made available to meet the needs of all. And that's why we socialists are correct when we continue to say that the only problem why Nigeria is in the situation it is, it's not because there's no resources. It's not because Africa is cursed. It is because of the system of capitalism, which ensures that public resources ends up in the pocket of a few, and that the economy is run to meet with the interest of a few instead of the mass majority of the people. We need to turn things around. We need the revolutionary overthrow of the prevailing capitalist economic system and its replacement by a socialist system run by a workers and purpose government. That kind of government can be able to ensure that the wealth of this country is placed under democratic workers' control and nationalized to meet the needs of all. And there's an example, even in the First Republic in this country, when with just agriculture, Nigeria was able to fund education, to even provide free education in the western region. That was not a socialist government at that time, but it just gives an idea of how vast our public resources is and what it can do if it is well managed. Today, on the basis of crude oil, Nigeria's economy is 10 times larger than what it was in the 70s. The revenue that is at the command of government across the country is 10 times much more larger than what was the case in the 70s. But yet, when you look at the condition of public education, healthcare, and co, there is nothing to write home about. Comrades, ladies and gentlemen, I've done what I used to do again. It is meant to be a brief welcome remark. It is turning to a long speech, but it is easy. we have been in this struggle for so long, and it seems that every time the government succeeds at deceiving the people into accepting policies that are detrimental to their interest. Just a few years ago, government came and said the only solution to electricity in Nigeria is to privatize it. How many years after now? Is there light? There's no light anywhere. That is the same situation that they are bringing to the other sector, and we must oppose it. So basically, we are calling on Nigerian students, education workers, that we must fight. We must demand, first and foremost, the conversion of the student loan into a grant to support the living expenses, of undergraduates. We must demand the reversal of all high fees across campuses. We must demand the increase in allocation to education in the 2024 budget. At the moment, it is just 7.9%. We need to demand as a first step for it to be increased to 15% as a basis, to ensuring that there's more resources, to provide for education. We are demanding the slash in the profligate expenses and salaries and allowances of political office holders. We are also demanding democratic management of our schools, end to attacks on democratic rights for the restatement of all victimized students and staff activists. And last but not the least, we are demanding that the economy should be nationalized under democratic workers' control. Comrades, this is the summary, of what we are here to do today.